What's up?
Hey, hey everyone, welcome to episode number 12 of the Kelly Berger podcast. My name is Kelly Berger and I'm the guy in charge. And today we have, as usual, my brother Darren on tech support.
Hello.
And today is another great episode because I pick out good guests. And today our guest is local Austin comedian Jack Horner.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for saying that I'm a good guest. I like to think that I'm probably a little bit better known for my sexcapades than my comedy, but yeah, I definitely am great at getting chicks. Right, Kelly? I get tons of
Yep.
chicks. Yeah, every time I'm at a mic, you're like, wow, that John just plows, dude. Tons of hot chicks.
Nice seeing Jack. You're just starting right off with that alpha male energy that you're known for.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, the BDE as it's called, the big dick energy. Yeah. By the way, so my given name's John. Jack's my stage name, and I feel kind of retarded by for like trying to go by Jack because like here's the thing. Like okay, so the reason I'm going by Jack is like on Kill Tony when I signed up once on a lark, right? Because I'd signed up like 12 times and I didn't get picked. So I was like, I'm gonna sign up by a different name, Jack Horner, and see if that works. And I got picked, right?
Wow, so
So
that was
the thing,
your strategy. You think like they had your name on the system, like maybe I'll change my name, sneak in another way?
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking, yeah. And you know, I but the dumb thing is, this is why I'm a moron, Kelly, is because I lived in Austin for like 3 or 4 months already by the time I got picked on Kill Tony. So everybody already knew me as John. It's like one, and then two, I've never gone by Jack before in my like day-to-day life. So when you're in your 30s, you really can't learn to respond to a new nickname. You know what I'm saying? And I've had like multiple people be like, "Hey, Jack, Jack," and I just walk right by them. And I don't want people to think I'm a jerk.
Mhm.
Like especially if I'm like get famous. It's like, oh man, I met Jack Horner. He's a real douche. Didn't
I
even
think
like.
Jack is it's a more energizing name than John.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, and that's sort of my comedy. Like I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah.
So you
Um.
became Jack Horner when you started in Austin?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, like I tried to go by the Jack in middle school, but they kept making really inappropriate jokes. Jack off owner. Yeah. And then I'll be and then in my head I was like, I'll show you guys. I'll become a famous comedian one day and say shit that's way funnier than that.
Yeah. Did you
And
see
now
that?
look at me.
Did you see that Pixar movie like Puss in Boots with the villain Jack Horner in it?
Yes, I did. And guess what? I'm glad you brought that up because if you look up Jack Horner on YouTube, my episode of the William Montgomery show is higher ranked than videos of the Jack Horner villain from Puss in Boots. Isn't that crazy? I'm
Yeah.
more famous than the Puss in Boots villain, dude.
Well, that's a good case of like evil doesn't always triumph.
Yeah, that's true. There's good Jacks and there's bad Jacks. And I'm one of the good Jacks. And I'm triumphing my ass off right now, bro.
Yep. So
So,
yeah, and I'm glad you brought up your experience on Kill Tony. You've been on there twice.
3 times.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah. Uh, so the first time was probably my best time, just in terms of like the joke and the interview. Um, and the second time, like I did a bit where I like it kills at Mike's, but like it just did not hit at all on the fucking show. Um, and then the third time was just like the best in terms of the results. I got the secret show and I got bottom of the barrel.
Yep, like your third time is the one where you were on with Starvos.
Yeah, that's right, dude. Fucking stop, man.
Yeah,
Dude, I
that was
shook that guy's hand. He was right next to me, dude. He's one of my favorite comics.
that was a very exciting episode. You get at a very exciting time, and yeah, and like you said, with your third time you got on the secret show on Bottom of the Barrel.
Yep.
You want to describe what Bottom of the Barrel is like, and then
So,
want to explain what that show is?
Sure, yeah. So Bottom of the Barrel is like an improv show, where you just pull topics out of a bucket and you riff. And I got there, um, and I was talking to Sam. I can't think of her last name, Sam Lopez, and she was like, "Did you fill out the I-9?" And I was like, "I-9? Am I? Or wait, the W-2 or whatever the fuck?" I'm like, "Am I getting paid?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're getting paid." So I go out to like the green room or whatever, right? And the second I get there, guess who pops out from behind the curtain?
Ooh, I'm
Joe
guessing
Rogan, man. Joe
you meant.
fucking Rogan. Yeah, dude. Dude, and I was like, I was starstruck, man. It's the first time I'd ever seen him, dude. Like, and
Nice.
like, he shook my hand. He's like, "What's your name?" It was just really quick interaction. Um, uh, and then I, uh, I, filled out the W-2 or whatever. And so for my set, right, I'm kind of hoping the guy in front of me bombs, you know? So when I actually have a better chance at doing like relatively okay. And I get bumped by someone. Guess who I get bumped by?
Oh,
I get bumped by Tom fucking Segura, man.
wow.
Yeah.
He was
Tom, yeah,
on
Tom.
bottom of the. He was on bottom of the barrel.
Yep, yeah, yeah. Because sometimes like people come in and do like guest spots or whatever. So yeah, he went on right before me. Shook his hand too. It was pretty fucking cool. Um, uh, and then like my first line out of the gate was, yeah, I was hoping the guy in front of me was gonna bomb, but turns out I got bumped by Tom fucking Segura, and everybody laughed. And the first set went really well. And then they told me that like I was actually supposed to be on the second show, and the second show wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't as good.
Yep, it was
And,
super late.
yeah, yeah, it was like where the energy wasn't quite as there, you know.
Yep, I'm also familiar with
Uh,
like the improv comedy shows. You just pick up a random topic. Like, do you remember what your topics were that night where you had a riff on them?
so like the one that I can recall, I can recall a few of them.
Mhm.
One was who would win in a game of Family Feud, Israel or Palestine? And I said,
Ooh.
Jews always rig the game. Everybody laughed. You know, anti-Semitism always kills, uh, both literally and metaphorically. Um, and then another one I got was like, what if you could uh, give autism like an STD or something?
These
And
sound these all sound like some pretty diced, spicy subjects for like an improv thing where you just
well,
have to think of work with some really hot topic, fucked up stuff on the spot. Like one I did before in Minneapolis, was they would just give you like generic. Well, actually, it was an improv show called Think Fast. It was topics given to you that was written by other comics. So sometimes it depends like who the other comic was giving you like the set list. Some were super controversial, some were light. That's sort of what Bottom of the Barrel reminds me of.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I mean it's the exact same type of concept, and of course it's going to be more hardcore because it's the mothership, you know.
Hmm. That's what it's
Um,
known for.
and like, I want to get your thoughts on this, Kelly, because like people get the idea that like those improv sets or like that off the top of your head stuff is harder, but for me, I feel like it's easier, you know, because whenever I'm doing prepared material, I have a lot of stress of like trying to remember what I want to say, you know, and that nervousness causes me to like lose my train of thought, punchline. But if I do like an improv set, all that just goes away. And also, I feel like if you do improv, like off the top of your head riff, the audience kind of gives you more leeway. You know, they're more likely to laugh. They kind of appreciate like the talent it took to come up with that on the spot. You know what I mean?
Yep, and also like when you approach conversations with with a script in your head, you do sort of get more awkward and stiff because you're trying to say like the exact right thing at the right time. It's sort of like when you're acting on like a school play. Where improv, it's sort of you're more loose. You're just going with the flow. And also that makes it. I think like spontaneity and like in the moment is like a. It's like a key. It's like one of the special ingredients that makes like a show or a comedy set super funny. Like, for example, South Park, they write their entire show within a week, as so does Saturday Night Live. So when you have that like tight, that short time frame, like you don't have much time to actually censor yourself or hold yourself back.
Yeah, like it's very freeing. It's liberating, you know. And if like something you say kills, like that feels so good, you know. Like yeah, like I was at a show last night with Bill Rhodes, the foul mouth teacher. I think he
Mm-hmm.
brought you up, by the way. He likes you, just to let you know. Um, uh, um, but anyway, he was saying that, or no, wait, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. But basically, there was a moment where Chris Tan like was interacting with a lady from the audience, like her dog like barked during the show, and she was like, "Don't get mad at my dog," and he said something like, "Oh, I'm trying to target all the bitches in here," like referring to her and the dog. But it was just like something he said like off the cuff and erupted, like it was a cool moment, and I think that is sort of what stand up is, like because like one thing that people that do stand up talk about a lot is their jokes. And do you think this is funny? And I mean, I do that too, but it's really not about the jokes as much, or not entirely. I'd say that's only half of it. The other half is like what you can milk in the moment, you know?
Yep. And it's
Yeah.
it's it's a tough balance, like trying to do the jokes you're in and try to match the room. And some comics, they like, I think Jay Leno said this in the book. He said like there's two types of comics. There's comics who can write really good jokes, and there's comics who can joke really well with their delivery. Like there's some comics who get like big laughs with just like saying the phrase "like a duck" with no context, and there's people who write super smart material that's really clever, but they deliver in like a dry deadpan. Like I had this problem earlier on with my autistic delivery because I would just be monotone during my entire set. So if you don't actually hear the words, you're not gonna pick up like on the emotional cues, like, oh, he's saying
Well,
something funny.
but like there's like when you say deadpan though, I think of like Steven Wright or Mitch Hedberg,
Mhm.
where and have you ever tried that, Kelly? Like, because I mean, if you're worried about your delivery, because I feel like you'd be good at that. Like, if you just actually like played into the no emotion tone, you know, and then like, yeah, I guess you are naturally pretty deadpan now that I think about it. But yeah, no, it's interesting how much delivery matters when it comes to comedy. Like, what I want to try to master is like the rhythm too.
Mhm.
Rhythm and delivery are pretty like similar, but that whole like ba-dum, bump. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Ba-dum,
it's
bump. And like and then this is like one of these things that I might think sounds super smart, but actually makes me sound like a fucking moron. Um, but it's almost like a song, you
mhm.
know? There's
Yeah,
like
it's
certain beats and like rhythms to it. And
yep. Like
it's not
one thing I've noticed with some comedians, like for example, when I watched like a comic like Miss Patton and George Carlin, I noticed like when they get to their punchline, they raise their volume up, and that's something I'm trying to work on.
you're working on raising your volume up, Kelly.
Yeah. Oh,
But
I know sometimes when I get nervous, I talk really loud during my entire set.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm also a loud talker as well. It's caused problems in my life.
But yeah, Jack, your set's very entertaining. Like when you walk on that stage, you have very high energy. You can, and you also, you run around and you have that fun, energetic tone with it. And
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. No, sorry, go ahead, man. I don't mean to cut you off.
and like when you're having fun, it sort of like catches on with the entire room. And
Yeah, I mean because like even if it's kind of a shitty night, a lot of times I feel like it's still fun. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm still at a comedy show. I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm doing something creative. I'm making people laugh, and I just have that fundamental optimism. And I think that that's just really important. And that optimism kind of goes back into what you were saying about talking shit about other comics or clubs, you know, like
Yep,
um
what we talked about during like the show prep before we started recording.
yeah. Oh yeah, we weren't being recorded when we talked about that. But
My one rule for this podcast, which only one episode broke that rule, and it got the ratings it deserved. But enough
okay.
about that.
So that's the one rule. That means we can be anti-Semitic, right? I'm just kidding.
As long as we're not naming any Jews by name.
Yeah, it's like Voldemort. If you name them, they appear. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Don't joke. But um, yeah, no, like it's actually like a provable fact. Like the happier you are, that's like one of the biggest advantages you can have at something at anything. Like are you a TED Talks person, Kelly?
I watched a couple of TED Talks every now and then. Are you referring? Which one are you referring to?
Well, there's this one guy that wrote The Happiness Advantage. It's a book, and he was like a sociologist or a psychologist, but he basically just talks about how being happy with what you're doing is a huge advantage, and he just goes through like all these statistics of like people at Ivy League schools, people at high stress, high paying jobs, what have you, and it breaks down how like the people that are more happy to be there are usually the most successful, you know, and yeah, be happy, man. That's good advice.
Yep.
Uh, So, uh, you want to know our origin story into getting into comedy, right?
Yep. Like I want to know, like, where did I know you live in Austin now, but where did you start doing comedy? I know you were in Missouri.
Yep, that's right. I'm from Missouri, a place called Springfield, third biggest city in Missouri.
Hmm.
Um,
Is there
um,
a comedy scene out in Springfield?
very small. There's one comedy club and a few bars that host open mics.
Hmm.
Um, and you can also like book shows in like smaller cities around Springfield. Um, and that was like a pretty rude awakening when I moved to Austin because when I was in Springfield, I was like one of the better ones, you know. And then you move to a place like Austin, and you're like, oh fuck, I'm
Yep.
nowhere near I thought I was. Did you experience that too?
Let's see. Well, I started out in Minneapolis, which is sort of like a mid scene. They have an open mic every night up there, and you got like a pros and people who walk through like. And it was like I was amazed. Like the first few years I was in Minneapolis, I almost had friends with comics like all around the country.
Yeah, like I would think that that's a pretty good place to start. I've actually, I didn't know that you were from Minneapolis, Kelly.
Yep.
I I have cousins that live in Minneapolis. My dad's family, and my dad is from Bismarck. You ever been to North Dakota?
Yeah, I've been through North Dakota a couple of times.
You been to Bismarck?
Oh, for a cousin's wedding, but that was about it. Nothing for comedy.
Oh, hey, still pretty fucking cool, man.
Hmm.
Anybody from North or Bismarck, I identify with those people. Okay, I'm gonna go like pretty right now, but I want to ask: are your ancestors Germans from Russia by any chance?
I'm not quite sure. Darren, you have to look in. Do you know about that, our history, Darren?
Yeah, I don't think there's any Russian in there at all.
Well,
The
so no, the reason that I like asked is because like in the north, but so there were people in Germans that moved to Russia in like the 17th century, and they lived there for a couple of hundred years. And then at the beginning of the 20th century, there was like a huge migration to America, and then they like populated like the North a lot. So like North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota. So
Yep,
yeah,
because the environment in that area matches their homeland.
yeah, no, I know exactly. Yeah, the plains. Yep, you're dead on, man. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
something.
yeah. I know you know lots of things. You're a very bright man, Kelly. I
Thank
can
you.
tell. Yeah,
Yep.
like
So you started comedy in Springfield. Like, what was the name of the major club in Springfield?
Blue Room Comedy Club. Whoop whoop. Yeah, shout out. Uh, yeah, it was a pretty cool moment actually. Like when I first started, it was like my second time ever doing it. I was like, I left the mic and I was about to cross the street, and the club owner chased me out, and he was just like, "Hey, you're really good at this, and keep doing it. And if you keep coming, I won't bury you." And it was just very affirming, and it's like this is my calling. Yeah, thanks, Chris Reachley. And
Nice.
that, yeah, yeah, it was a great moment. I've had a lot of good moments in comedy, man.
Yep.
Like I would say my other proudest moment was the first secret show I did, man.
Oh
Like
yeah, that's the show to go to if you want to see some pros in action.
yeah, I just remember like that I was the first to go up, and um and it was just like a real club with like a real like stage and like a timer, and everybody fucking, because I was the first, like everybody laughed at my shit. The crowd
Yep.
wasn't ready yet. It's a good time to go up. And
Yep.
God,
Before you go on, John, I'm going to explain to the listeners what the Secret Show is. The Secret Show is a comedy showcase at Brian Redband's club at Sunset Strip in Austin, Texas. And if you do really good on your Kill-A-Tony set on Kill-A-Tony, you get an automatic spot on that Secret Show. Which, John, you won that spot on that show when you were on with Starbucks.
so yeah, I did that time, but I'm referring to the first time I did it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I did it was actually at Vulcan. Not to nitpick, but yeah, and it was just a cool moment, man. Like, yeah, I've gotten the secret show every time. Um, and yeah, it was kind of unfortunate just because, like, I mean, my work schedule, like the store closed at 7, and or the store I worked at closed at 7, and I couldn't sign up for a long time. And also, like, I procrastinated a little bit, like, just because it was weird to get all that attention. And how personal do you want us to get on this podcast?
As much as you feel comfortable.
Well, so no, I just went through like a really weird thing, like after my first and second Kill Tony, where um I was like weirdly depressed, and I was just dealing with like a lot of mental bullshit. And I think it was because I switched my ADHD medication. Like it was, but yeah, like, yeah. And by the way, be careful with that, man. Like I take a relatively low dose too. Like I take 10 milligrams, which isn't considered a lot. Most people take 20, but even with that in mind, like, yeah, no, I still had some real like crazy shit just kind of happened in my brain where it just kind of caused me to shut down. So word to the
Yeah.
wise out there, yeah, just be careful with that ADHD medication, and just look up the side effects, and yeah, that's all I want to say about that.
Yep, and you did mention like a good point, like when you talk about like having like depression after like a high moment that usually happens with like a lot of people, and they get to the peak when like when you're at the top, there's nowhere to go afterwards except down. That sort of like happens
Yeah,
when a lot of people they start doing what they want to do, and it's sort of like when their fantasy becomes a reality, it's no longer a fantasy.
yeah, it's like when that chick you have a big crush on like rejects you, and like all those daydreams you had about like being with that chick is just not a reality anymore, you know? Like that's over. And like when you kind of find some success and you realize that there's some downsides to it, or it doesn't feel like you thought it would, like that fantasy's over, you know? Like one thing that I was kind of surprised by that I do kind of want to tell people if they want to start comedy. So, I mean, Kill Tony gets views, right?
Mm-hmm. I think your audio went out.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard?
I think you were talking about how Kill Tony gets views.
Yeah, it gets views. So, and you get some notoriety. And like, that was the first time I've ever dealt with that. And there's some real crazy motherfuckers out there, man. Like, I I hung out with this guy who, uh, I, okay, I should probably tell the full story because like this just makes me sound like an idiot. Like just if you like know every detail. So basically, I'm kind of a political asshole on Facebook sometimes, and I posted something about masks and how people who don't think we should wear masks during a pandemic are stupid, right? And this guy messages me. Apparently, we met before, but I didn't even remember. And he messages me some like article about how masks aren't effective, and then I read the article and I just debunked it. I just did enough like 5 minutes of research and I was like, oh, this is bullshit, you know? And then he kept sending me like all these weird messages. And eventually I was like, you don't really try to argue with me. You just send messages like what the fuck? And he was like, oh, I'm like a lonely guy, And I was like, oh, he's just lonely,
Yep.
I'm gonna hang out with him. Okay.
That's how some guys get attention because they try just to agitate and also
Yeah.
Facebook is not very well known for its high level of civil discourse.
Yeah, and it's see, and it's so weird though because like I barely ever spoken to this guy, right? Like, for instance, like Kelly, you and me have spoken enough, right? To where if you wanted to send me some anti-mask like shit, that actually wouldn't be strange. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah, I know you. We've talked multiple times. Like, yeah, let's have this discussion. But some dude that you've never met before or spoken to once, like sending me shit. But anyway, I hung out with this guy. And man, he was just nuts. Like, if he happens to be listening to this, like, God bless you. Like, I've nothing against you, but
Hope you're still alive and not died from COVID yet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, that might change if there's another swing of the pandemic and he keeps that same hardcore stance on masks. But uh, anywho, uh, you know, yeah, like I was hanging out with this guy, and there was this moment where we were walking up to this open mic, right? And the whole time he'd been pretty fucking hostile, but like we're walking to this open mic, right? And he was walking behind me, and he was just muttering like angry shit and like insulting, like you know what I'm saying, like not like saying it to me directly, like muttering it under his breath right behind me, like and I just had like a light bulb moment where it's like this guy might fucking kill me, you know? Like this might be like the end of John or Jack.
Huh.
And that's just like one thing I want to let people know is like, if you think you want notoriety or whatever,
Yep.
it's there's a price to it, man. Like, and it's not your responsibility to be everybody's friend.
Yep.
And then just to
When
what
you're
you're,
a public person, you're a public target, and I'm glad
yeah,
you talked about like people being assholes. Like with this guy was another comic who was being mean to you or
I
muttering
mean,
those things.
he's like, so I think he would call himself a comic, but I never see him at any of the mics. Um, and also like, I mean, like, and this is a big part of the reason why he was mean to me. He's like older than a lot of comics, you know.
Yep.
He sucks. Like, I mean, like, I, he's just not a good comedian, like at all.
Yep. And also
Like,
there's that ego thing, like older comic, this combination of like ego and insecurity, like older comics have when they, especially when they start out super late and they're surrounded by a bunch of younger comics who've been doing it longer and who've been more established.
yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that like the entertainment industry is superficial, you know, like a lot of it's being young and looking good, and like fundamentally though, and this was like kind of like something I really had to struggle with because like it it was kind of like being back in high school. Like this guy just really fucking bullied me, man. And it just really did make me rethink like wanting to be like a public figure. But I really want to emphasize though that like, and this is kind of what you said like before we were being recorded about like not talking shit on other comics, you know? Like that guy is like so confused and sad and lost that he can't even hang out with somebody, you know? Like he can't even make friends. And if you just kind of like zoom past your ego and like look deeper, it's like if I retaliate on that guy or if I'm an asshole back to him, then I'm no better than he is, you know? And it's like yeah, like I mean the best thing to do is just leave it, you know, like all this drama, all this beef, like I mean, yeah, if there's someone lashes out at you, it has nothing to do with you
Mhm.
and a lot to do with something else that they went through that they're struggling with.
Yep, it's
Um,
usually like a case of anger transference where somebody gets like bad happens, sucky happens to them, and they have like that negative emotion that goes into them, and they just like servers and public people who work with customers deal with that sort of shit all the time.
yeah, oh yeah, man. Like, yeah, I mean, because you're just like some faceless corporate cog, and you know what? And the guy that just got a divorce and his wife's cheating on him, he can take that out on you, man. Yep, I've been through that. Have you ever worked customer service, Kelly?
Well, I haven't worked customer service with a lot of jobs. My last job was like my first actual job where I deal with customers directly. It was when I worked as a mover, and I got like 1 out of 10 people were not satisfied with their move. They got mad because we didn't like set up something certain right, and we also had to like every now and then we would have to haul like super breakable shit on these trucks, and we had to wrap them up. And one day we were working at this one mansion, and one of my coworkers dropped a vase.
Oh fuck! Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah. No, like I'm a door to door salesman now, and I'm also mildly disabled. Um, and like sometimes people have like plants and shit like on their porch, and I am so nervous that I'm just gonna like knock over the vase by accident or something. But if that's the case, though, I can just walk away. You know,
Mhm.
like that never happened. But yeah, your buddy wouldn't be that lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I assume that they were complete assholes about it, right?
Yep. Have you worked other customer service jobs before, like waiters or fast
Did you
food cashier?
have you ever seen me walk, Kelly?
Yeah.
Walk with a plate of food at the same time? No. Yeah, no, I don't think I could be a server, but yeah, I've done a shitload of customer service jobs, like call centers and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, wait. There was my first job was a customer service job, but it was super short, so I didn't even count it. Darren will know about this company. It was a call center in central Minnesota where we would call up random pockets of the deep south to collect money for Democrats.
And was it like, stop fucking calling me?
Yeah, it was a lot of that. My my friend was super into that job, which I never understood why. But it was
Well,
sort of like,
I'm sorry, guys. I just I'm coughing my ass off. I'm gonna die. Hold on. Fuck. No, I get it, man. I've actually wanted to do that job. I'm a big political junkie. I'd love to be a fundraiser for the Democratic Party, get people to send in money. I'd be good at it.
yep. Are you okay, John? Your picture frozen. Are you vaping super hard right now?
No, no. I just vaped once and I can't stop coughing, but I'm fine. It's just inconvenient for the interview. I'm sorry.
All
That's
right.
all right.
Well, if hopefully you're not dying. Otherwise, if you are, you anything you want to leave? I want to leave a last
Dude,
message to the world.
if I was dying, bro, that would be the best thing ever for this episode of the podcast.
It would boost up the ratings for sure.
Oh, like if I just keeled over right now, that'd be fucking crazy, dude. In fact, you could probably get on the local news or something with that shit.
I wish we were recording this live. Then that way because this thing probably won't come out for a couple weeks, and it would be just like too late.
Yeah. Well, too late for me, but not too late for you, Kelly. It'd be great for you. Um, man, that would be pretty fucking crazy. Like, if someone died like during a podcast. How many podcasts have you done, Kelly? Like just being interviewed?
This is episode number 12 right now. We've done plenty before, and like I said before, like the main reason I'm doing this podcast is to exercise my conversation muscle, and also I say like to teach me to be more human.
Well, I no, and like that's an aspect to Asperger's that I can really relate to because I don't think I'm autistic, but I'm definitely a bit odd. Like I'm like I am diagnosed ADHD, and it's that is like a neurodivergence, and I have problems like making small talk. You know,
Yeah.
like I just can't think of things to say. And it's the weirdest thing. Like I'm sure you can relate to that, right?
Yep, and I think like the conversation problem has been gotten worse in the last couple of years because with everyone being so online more often and everyone sort of being on public display. Like remember like how people got super crazy when they were on like a reality TV show?
Yeah,
I sort of feel like social media sort of like expanded that phenomenon to everyone in their personal life. Where
yeah.
when where people feel like they're being on display more often, so they sort of like mask up and get defensive, and also they sort of like puff up their chest and act more macho or righteous than they really are.
Do you mean online or in real life?
A mixture of both.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right, and I think a part of that is because people are online more and like socialize less in the traditional way. That whenever like they are confronted in the real world, they're kind of more likely to get like emotional, you know,
Mm.
and like triggered. And I hate the term triggered because it's always used by like redneck assholes. But like I think that is like a thing where um like because like they're just sitting in their home all day on Facebook or on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, that whenever someone gets called out or questioned, or they're just more likely to be like, "Wow!" Like they just can't. They're not as well adjusted to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of like they use that term like to brush off legit criticism, like, oh, you don't like that one joke I said where it was just like saying like an ethnic slur. You're just
Yeah.
triggered.
Oh, dude. Like, and I feel like I've done this, so I'm probably a hypocrite. But that's my biggest pet peeve at open mics is when a comic just tells a shitty joke. And they're like, "Ooh, is that too controversial for you guys?" Ew. It's like, no, that didn't have a fucking punchline. you know, you just sound racist. you
Yeah.
know,
And that's what
uh,
open mics are for, is try out new stuff and actually workshop stuff out. And hopefully there was no phones around because 90% like when a comedian gets canceled, it's usually for like an unfinished, unstructured joke. And that's why I
yeah.
like how the mothership and some of the clubs in town have people lock up their phones.
So since you use the term, like, yeah, no, that does make sense. And also, like, just in terms of like a plagiarism aspect, like, I wish more clubs would do that because I feel like a lot of shit probably gets stolen or more shit gets stolen because some unknown comedian puts their shit on TikTok, and then some slightly bigger comedian's gonna be like, okay, that's mine now. You know?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
that's gonna happen to everybody. Like, and usually when I talk with some comics, yeah, and usually when a person's stealing jokes is because they can't generate their own. And I notice like when some comedian steals a joke, you can almost tell like who stole it just by like usually a good comedian tells when they tell their jokes, it comes from their personality. You can feel the authenticity, and when someone just takes somebody's line, you can sort of feel the fakeness on like a emotional level. Like I remember watching old clips of Carlos Mencia, seeing like something doesn't quite feel right, and then he got called out for it.
well, I mean, Carlos, no, Carlos, that's a very interesting like story. So I have a few things I want to say. So we'll talk about Carlos Mencia. Then I also have a question for you about cancel culture, Kelly.
Okay.
But so in terms of Carlos Mencia, um, like now that I've gone to a lot of open mics, I do feel like absorption is a legitimate thing,
Yep,
you know?
parallel thinking, or yes, and also there are cases of like some people just telling like an easy joke that anybody could have thought of. As I like to think of it like your bed is like a painting. Sometimes people like just draw like a circle and say like, "Oh, that's a joke done," and then people add more detail, like they add like watercolor depth to it, like or more sage to a sunshine.
Yeah, yeah, like exactly. And it's like, I mean, you just see so many of the same comics, over and over and over, and you hear the same material over and over and over again, that like you could maybe absorb it, and
Mhm.
then months go by and you don't hear that joke, and then you're trying to write, and then you just think this like thought, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm worried that I might do that, like, especially if a joke's too funny. Did you have that tendency where, like, if you think of a really funny joke, you kind of fear that you've heard it somewhere before?
Um, Sometimes, but usually I try to add more details in the punchline. Like I know the premise part of the jokes, most of those are pretty generic, just like you're just talking about like generic things like dating and politics. And I know some people like to claim ownership of like, oh, I was the first guy to talk about trans issues.
No, no, you weren't.
Yeah,
uh
exactly.
like, no, and I mean, because that kind of like reminds me of Dave Chappelle and like all of his new shit, you know like, and this is just something I want to say about comedy in general, and I think this is good advice for open micers, like people who think that comedy is supposed to be a platform for social change. Like, I agree that yes, it should be, but it only works as a platform for social change if your shit's funny. Because by getting someone to laugh, especially someone that disagrees with your point of view to laugh, what you're doing is you're subverting the intellect, the mind, right? And you're going to a deeper level. And I really think that that's what gets people to question their beliefs, to actually kind of sway someone's opinion and help comedy serve the purpose that it's supposed to serve. If
Yep.
you go at it from a standpoint of, I'm just going to be controversial and I don't give a fuck about pissing anybody else, you know what I'm saying? And you don't care about making the people you disagree with laugh and
Yeah, but
having a
if you
good
go,
time.
if a comic goes on that road, just admit that if you're gonna go down on it, just admit you're gonna piss some people off and don't. Like I see some comics who do a controversial joke just for the sake of being controversial, and people call them out, and they like, what did you expect? And I know a lot of comedians, they want to. It's sort of weird, like how they want to be a controversial comedian, but then sort of get mad when people get offended. Like that's sort of like going into a battle and not expecting to get shot at.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's kind of ironic because those people that would like probably have the reaction you're talking about are probably the same type of people that talk about social justice warriors and getting triggered and cancel culture and snowflake. It's always those people that are the most sensitive. I've been blocked by like probably 5 or 6 people because of my outlandish opinions on Facebook, and it was always right-wing libertarian types that talked about free speech and not getting offended and blah blah blah. And that's just projection because they're really talking about themselves. But uh, back to what you were saying, um, I think that like um, like I want to compare like Dave Chappelle's new shit with like George Carlin, right? Like, Dave Chappelle actually has a lot of viewpoints I agree with. I think Dave Chappelle's a smart guy, obviously. You
Yep,
know,
I didn't see his last special, but I remember watching The Closer, and I remember
yeah,
people talking about like, oh, these jokes were transphobic, and then I listened to it, and I didn't quite hear it. He talked about like how he had like a trans friend.
So, first of all, there's a big detail that I think gets overlooked, right? So, he says that that person killed themselves a week later, right? And then the story's about what? Do you remember what the story was about?
No, what was this story about?
It was about that person bombing in front of Dave Chappelle for 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, because she was a newish comic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, would you ever have a newer comic do 45 minutes?
No.
No. Yeah, that person killed themselves because they fucking bombed in front of Dave Chappelle. And yeah, and I feel like honestly, like if we both know that that's a fucked up thing to do to a newer comic, you know, then he knows that too, right? And that just doesn't sit well with me,
Yeah,
you know.
I have to look more into that story because
Look, I haven't looked into it at all. I just listened to the special, but okay, bombed in front of Dave Chappelle for 45 minutes, right? Then killed themselves a week later, right? Kelly, if you bombed in front of Dave Chappelle for 45 minutes, right? Uh, would you not have suicidal thoughts? you know, like, and then this is a trans person we're talking about, somebody who might have some psychological issues,
yeah, but
or
I know comedy attracts a lot of people with deep issues and
yeah, and
it,
trauma. And I don't know, but okay, but to my point about what I was saying about Dave Chappelle versus George Carlin. So my problem isn't that they were transphobic jokes; it's that they weren't fucking jokes. Okay, there
oh,
was
just
no
like Blink.
no, it was just him talking about the same fucking story for 25 minutes. It's boring. Like if you like, have you ever heard George Carlin's Seven Dirty Words? You have, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a brilliant bit. That's a brilliant bit about what society finds offensive and not offensive. That's a bit that gets people to think, but that's also an excellent joke. You know, when he's like, "Oh, the seven dirty words you can't say. They must really be bad." You know how he like builds it up and then just bam spits them out. Like that's the rhythm we're talking about. That's the actual structure of the joke. And if you look at all the so-called great comedians, and this includes Dave Chappelle, like there was always a period before they became what they were known for, these like so-called like social commentators, where they did the Bill Cosby shit. They did the setup punchline shit. They learned that first. And then from there, they learned that structure or how to apply that structure and how to be funny to the more controversial shit that they wanted to say. They weren't just lecturing the audience for 45 minutes. You
Yep,
know?
and that's another reason why I recommend a lot of comedians when they start out just write clean first and then learn to go dirty later.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or
Because
maybe even a better way to put it is write jokes that can be both clean and dirty. You know, like Mitch Hedberg, for instance. Like he was not a clean comic. He said fuck a lot, but if you could make the jokes work without saying fuck, you know. So maybe saying fuck's okay, but yeah, learn how to write material that stands well on its own. And also, another reason why you're right about that, Kelly, is the best way to make money in comedy is how
is
corporate
to be a
corporate.
presentable to be a very professional presenter and to have a material that can apply to like a wider range of audience.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say that like the two people that pay the most, though, are the two types of venues are corporations and churches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you actually want to make a good living as a comic, maybe not be the most famous guy in the world, but make a decent living, like you got to do those types of shows. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and like don't shut yourself off from that because you want to be the next revolutionary badass. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, and I'm glad you. There's also like there's like a trade off. Like I talk about this time. This is talks about this all the time. Like, listen, there's a trade off. Like, if you want to say what you want to say, you're gonna lose venues. But if you want to get to more venues, you're gonna have to clip off some material. That's the trade off. And some comics saying like, okay, I want to be more edgy and talk about what I want to say. So yeah, there is the cost. Like, yeah, not everyone's going to open you up saying like, oh, we don't know what this guy's going to do. So, and also, if you want to work venues, you got to know who you're
Yeah,
presenting
no,
yourself
I
to
know.
as.
Yeah, no, Kelly, you're absolutely right. Yeah, like you gotta like, if you want to make money at this, you got to give yourself the most opportunities to make money. You know, like like if you kind of like do all like dirty topics or all really controversial shit, like there's so many like doors that are shut, and like sorry, and by the way, guys, like I don't like make a lot of eye contact when I talk, and it's also like kind of awkward because I'm just staring at my phone camera right now. But
I noticed your picture froze a while ago.
oh, is it still frozen?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can turn the phone around if it's easier.
Oh, yeah. Okay, since my picture's frozen, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
Okay, yeah. Fuck it. Cool. But anyway, I what were we talking about? I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so I want to ask you about cancel culture, Kelly. Okay. This is just a philosophical question about cancel culture. Okay.
all right.
Right. So people talk about how cancel culture sort of like, you know, stifles free speech and comedians' free speech, but isn't the ability to not do business with someone also a form of free speech? Like
Yes,
if a yeah, if a sponsor chooses to drop you, that's a form of free speech. You
yep,
know?
that's and well, right now we have a wide variety of clubs. Like Dave Smith talked about this when he got taken off from the club in Seattle. He said, like, listen, clubs can put on who they want, and they can also not have on who they want. And right now, this is the great thing with the internet. Like people who feel like they're going to get shut out, like from certain comic clicks, can start make their own click. And my view on cancel culture is like cancel culture is never going to die. The only thing that's going to the only it's only going to change guards. Like everyone's going to have something saying like, "Oh, this is a line you're not going to cross."
Well, yeah, I think that society's views are going to change, but I'm not sure cancel culture should change, right? Like you should have the ability to cancel someone, you know? And isn't that like the what people always like say, like, if you don't want to go into a bakery that doesn't want to do a gay wedding cake, then don't go into that bakery. Don't go into that business. That's just another version of that, you know? Like if you don't like what a comedian said, yeah, unfollow them. Don't try to like ruin their life. Don't go to their house and be an asshole.
Just
Just
walk away and be better.
yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure cancel culture should die. I think that the ability to cancel people is like essential. That's someone's right. Like
Also,
if
but from my perspective, like I've seen comedians. My perspective is like the people who sort of like get killed off by cancel culture aren't like the people who push the boundaries. It's like it's usually people who try to cancel other comedians, and they sort of like they listen when you go into a field like stand up or like anything with type of expression, like the floodgates are open. You don't hear everything, good and bad, and yeah, like I hear like a whole bunch of shitty material. It just does sort of makes me walk away with like an ick.
so, um, I wanna ask you about that. Oh, okay. So, like, yeah, like what you think, like your reaction to something, like I never have the feeling that that should like dictate the room. I don't want to share that with anybody. Like if I think something's ick, and especially if like another open mic comedian says something ick, like I would never like share that. But opinion, like I'm not gonna try to cancel that guy. I don't give a fuck. Um, but uh, Kelly, like on cancel culture, again, I'm still losing my train of thought. Hold on. I was just gonna say, on cancel culture, like you say it's gonna change guards. Who do you think the guard is changing to now? Do you have like a prediction of where it's gonna go?
Well, I think in the next couple of years, well, like I see people becoming more and more religious again. They sort of see trying to keep guards up to try to keep things proper. So I might go back to the right wing again.
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with who's in power at the time. You know,
Exactly.
like,
Because they want to, that's exactly, because that's usually when companies like fail is when they get every company, like once they get super big, they try to become more conservative because they want to maintain that time when they're on top. And that happens with every group when they get super big, they try to maintain that high flow, but everything comes and goes.
yeah, yeah, that's so true, man. Like, it's a constant like flow. Everything always changes. Nothing lasts forever. And if you're on top one day, you're going to be on bottom the next. But you say that like when companies get big, they try to become more conservative.
Yep, they try to maintain like the conditions, like remember like how when people get old, they try to reminisce about the past because they want to maintain that period of time when they were more happy, more vibrant. But then like the new crop of kids come in, they try to do everything different.
Yeah, and it's weird how like cyclical that is, and how nobody seems to notice that. You know, like baby boomers talking shit about our generation, right?
Mhm.
Like, basically, they're saying everything that their World War II parents said about them to us. You know, and we're not any different. What do we say about Gen Z? I know, like, I like to talk shit on Gen Z sometimes. And I think what it is you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's about mortality, like they don't want to admit that they're getting older and dying, and they just resent the vitality of youth. So their way of projecting that is just like disapproving of their values, you know. Um, what do you? How would you describe our generation, Kelly?
Let's see. I would say first word that comes up top of my head is confused. Like we're in a new environment where millennials sort of grew up with the internet, then we went into the world of the internet. Like we were raised with like this one standard, like this is how you have to be like to get a good successful business. But it was the advice we got back then was what worked back then. But now we're in like in a new territory, and especially like in best biggest example I can think of is like the world of dating. Like we were raised like we weren't raised without the dating apps and like this hyper competition online now. And like the advice I got back then on dating is like find a good circle of friends, but now everyone's more isolated online and competitive.
You say that's making dating harder?
Yes.
Would you say that it's made dating harder but sex easier?
Depends on who's in the position.
Yeah, but like I guess what I'm saying is like with all the apps, it's more about hooking up now, you
Mhm.
know? And it's not really about getting to know a person anymore, and like and that compounded with what you're saying about just people being more isolated, just like a lot of the decorum of dating and the chivalry I think is gone, you know? Um but I feel like dating's probably a little bit easier overall, and I want to think it's harder because I'm just a nerd that doesn't get any chicks. So, Kelly, do you have what other questions do you have for me, man? I'm sorry if we had
All
questions that
right.
I'm not getting to. Do you have
But I
any
like the
questions?
way one of the things I like about you, John, is like you are a very entertaining person, performer. You're very energetic, and also like we just found out earlier, you are a person with a heart, and you are you do care about like people who are like not like in a position of power, like people who get kicked around.
Thank you, man. No, that like I mean the energy thing is something that people point out a lot. Um, but no one's ever like I like to think I'm that type of person that sticks up for the little guy, and it's nice to hear you acknowledge that, Kelly. Thank you, man. That makes me happy. I think part of the reason for that obviously is like having that disability, and I get the feeling that you're the same way, Kelly. Just
Yep.
because like I've been sort of misunderstood my whole life, and I've been that guy that gets like picked on and fucked with. That like yeah, I feel a huge compulsion to stick up for the little guy.
Yep.
You
Did you
know?
grow when you were growing up? Were you in like? Did you grow up in like the special ed program?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I I was in that boat too. And did that have growing up with that sort of like label of, now they didn't quite say it outright, but you did sort of feel like that label of inferiority?
Oh yeah, I mean, even though what do you? I mean, yeah, they don't say it outright, but there's certain teachers that obviously like treat you differently, and like it was kind of bad. Like I had to have someone sit with me in class, my English class, to help me pay attention. And like whenever they weren't there, like kids would make fun of me and shit. Um, uh, I had like a teacher, like a different teacher, who whenever I had a question, she would just like get the teacher's aide from the special ed class to answer my question. You know, um, I one time there was a test that I studied really hard for. It was memorizing all the fucking capitals, and I did it. And then like there was like a special ed version of the test, that I wasn't even supposed to take. It wasn't in my IEP. You know what an IEP is, right, Kelly?
IEP?
Yeah, did you know that term?
I haven't heard it in a while. What does it stand for?
Oh, I don't even know what it stands for either, but basically it was like all the special conditions that you get
Okay.
because of your disability. But yeah, I wasn't supposed to take the dumb test. And yeah, and then I was mad about that because I studied super hard, you know. And then the next time, like we did a test in that class, I turned to the teacher's aide and I said something. I forgot exactly what I said, but it was like, "Oh, you're gonna give me the right test this time," and they made me to apologize for smarting off to her, because I was mad about the first time she fucked up. Do you get what I guess? Am I in special? Is it probably right that I was in special ed? Did that story make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if it did, but like, yeah, like I mean, I went through a lot of shit like that, you know. But one thing I've kind of figured out, Kelly, and I bet you're also sort of in the same boat. Like, I think that the kids that I feel kind of most sorry for in retrospect are the kids that were popular and the kids that were in the gifted program, you know,
Get that
because
false sense of confidence.
well, yeah, because yeah, I'm sure that obviously they are very bright, but you haven't experienced any real hardship yet, and you're already getting told that you're going to succeed and all these great things are going to happen, and then when you get into the real world and shit doesn't always go your way, I think it's kind of harder to deal with that, you
Yeah.
know, like I had a buddy who I was friends with in high school, and he was my smartest friend, um, he was in the wings. It was the gifted program, and fantastic debater. Like, went to law school, and I only talked to him once, And when I got off the phone with him, I was thinking like, oh fuck, like, he's this like successful guy that went to law school, and I'm this like special ed kid that's like working at Walmart. And when he passed away, I just kind of realized that like those like preconceptions that I had about like how his life was versus how my life was,
Mm-hmm.
and how it like tied into how we were treated when we were younger, were completely reversed, you know, and that's why I'm kind of thankful for what I went through when I was a kid, because if you kind of start off with the deck stacked against you a little bit, it's kind of like,
Makes
oh,
you more resilient. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
especially when you
absolutely.
go into like a new job and you're sort of like learning everything now, and people have these like, yeah, like the bitch slap of reality. Like, people expect you to know this stuff that they've been doing forever, and then you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm horrible at that. Did my camera start working again?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so it's pretty blurry. Did you guys see me play with my balls?
No, we did not.
Okay, good, because I've been playing with my balls this whole time. Um, but sorry. Um, uh, so what I was saying though is like, yeah, no, it makes you more resilient, and like it's kind of like the yin yang of the universe, like for like everything is equal for like there's an equal cause to every effect or equal effect to every cause. You know what I'm saying, even though I'm doing a bad job saying it. And it's like, yeah, that's bad. Going through that shit when you're younger is bad, but I think it kind of prepares you for a better adulthood. You know, like if I would never have been disabled, right? There's no chance I'd be a comedian because my dad loves sports. You know what I'm saying? Like, but because of that hardship, I met Joe Rogan. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like don't give up and don't like believe everything that people tell you, even if there is a grain of truth in some of what they're saying. Like, I'm kind of an annoying person to work with just because I'm very ADHD and like I don't remember passwords and shit, and like people should definitely get frustrated with me. So some of that criticism is warranted, but like I don't even know where I was going with that. But basically, what I was saying is that God damn it, I'm like losing my train of thought again. I did not get any sleep last night. I stayed up
Late night? Did you do a late
yeah,
show last night?
yeah, I did. I drank a Red Bull, and I fucking I didn't get any sleep. But I was talking about hardships, the yin yang, yeah, cause yeah. So like, yeah, no, and I just think that yeah, like don't give up. Find your thing. Like that shitty job and how they judge you, like that's not you. That's not the totality of what you have to offer people. You know. But I also want to say this, and this is kind of the exact opposite of that. Um, a lot of people have hit me up like wanting to be comedians, and they like send me messages, and then I have like friends from like high school and shit that like want to try comedy and like I don't know. I don't feel like most people should.
I
You know?
think your voice went out again.
Oh,
You
sorry.
talk about how most people should or shouldn't do comedy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I don't think most people should. you know, like, but because I, I just like for instance, I had a buddy who like I was good friends with in high school, very funny guy, and this was after my like one of my Kill Tonys, and there was something in his voice where I could tell that he just kind of wanted to come visit me in Austin, and he like wanted to move down here, and like he didn't say it, but it was just again something in his voice, and it's like he has like a relationship where he's been with this girl for a long time, and he's gonna start a family, and like that's a much better pursuit in
Yeah,
comedy.
that's
You know?
if you have other people depend on you, comedy would be seen more as a hobby at that point than a career.
Yeah, like I have comedians, I know comedians with multiple kids, and they quit, and then other comics are like, why would they do that? And I'm kind of like, I'm glad they quit. You know, fucking
But at the
support your.
same time, I know a lot of people make this argument saying like, "Oh, we have so many people doing comedy; it's super saturated." But I disagree. I think more people should at least try comedy, go to open mics to try it out. Because listen, if we have more people doing comedy, we're going to have more shows being run by comedians who understand comedians better than big corporations and bookers because they always short staff. They short,
No,
just
I
sort of
know what you're.
short change.
No, yeah, I know what you're saying. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And they also like run rooms saying like they just put us in unprepared rooms saying like, okay, this is a stage, go do it. And they
Well,
don't
yeah,
properly advertise the show.
like I think that both of us can be right because I think what you just said was right, but I think also what I'm saying about like people wanting to try this, like, okay, this is gonna make me sound like an arrogant prick, but like I, I agree that most people should try comedy, but they should do it with like realistic expectations and not do it to make a living off of it. Like,
Right. Because yeah, they're read the devil's contract before you sign because this it takes like the average person like 10 years just to be okay at it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like the average comedian makes anywhere from 40,000 to $70,000 a year, you know, and that's if you're lucky, and it's like that's a lot of work to put in to make maybe $50,000 a year when you can make the same salary, um, be home every night, have a family, have a happy life, have health insurance and all that shit.
Also,
Like
and also ask yourself, like, what do you want out of this? Do you, if you're doing comedy for like money, fame, women, you're an idiot. You gotta love what the process of doing it, like the writing, the getting stuff set up.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, and like, I've had some amazing moments doing comedy. Like, I remember like one of the first shows I did after the pandemic, um, where I crushed really hard, you know, and it wasn't because my jokes were funny though. Like, I could tell when I talked to people afterwards, it was just because like we'd all went through a really traumatizing time in our country with a pandemic, and I can tell that these people just needed to laugh, you
Yep.
know. It's like, and I just really felt like I did something good, you know,
Yep.
and like when I was on William Montgomery Flex, like this guy walked up to me and like, because I'd mentioned like at one point that I'd stopped masturbating for a while, you know, and it helped with my creative energy. But this guy walked up to me and he said like, "Hey man, like because of what you said, I quit watching porn," you know, and like and that was just like a one-off comment that I made kind of as a half joke, even though I was being serious. But it's like, wow, you know, that feels good. So you do get a lot of good from it. But I would just co- urge people to think of it more as a way to connect with their local community, as a way to express, you know, your creativity, and not necessarily as a way to make a living. And then on top of that, I uh, I think that um, like there's other things that doing comedy would help you with, you know. So think of it how it could hone other skills. Like, you know, I think that if you do open mic comedy for 5 years, you're going to be a much better high school teacher or pastor or salesperson or
Basically,
adver- yeah,
learn
you
how
know,
to
it's like,
like to read and relate to people.
yeah, like learning how to not only talk in front of people but make them laugh. That's so beneficial. And
Mhm.
so like I'm a smart philosophical person, Kelly. Do you read philosophical books so you can quote them like a hipster douchebag later in conversation?
No, I've sort of been on and off, read books on and off again, and well, yeah, I do read a lot of books, and I
Huh,
like to read books on like human connection and social skills.
um, uh, well, yeah, cool. No, I actually want to ask you some about some of those books here in a second, but the book that I wanted to quote to be a douchebag is the Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Um, so it was like one of Steve Jobs' favorite books, and it's regarded as like one of like the best religious books of like recent history. And it was written by this guy named Parahatsama Yoganda, who he was like this Hindu. He's like one of the first yogis that ever came to America in like the 1950s. And there's a part of the book where he talks to a guy that fights tigers. Um, and I want to read this quote because, like, it kind of like really falls in line with how I feel about comedy, you know, and how it's like meant to be applied to different things. But Kelly, while I'm trying to find it, oh, hold on a second, I just found it. So, okay, this is the quote from the book, right? And
All
this
right.
is, and this is again him talking to a tiger fighter. Like, so do you think, revered Swami, that I could ever fight tigers? This was the first and last time that the bizarre ambition ever visited my mind. Yes, he was smiling, but there are many different kinds of tigers. Some roam in jungles of human desires. No spiritual benefit accrues by knocking beasts unconscious. Rather be victorious over the inner prowlers. And this isn't exactly what we're talking about, but that's kind of like how I feel about comedy. You know, like use that skill to slay a different beast. You know, like use that skill of talking in front of people to maybe become a better teacher or like better like you know, well, like what I was saying a second ago, or better pastor, or just better at talking in front of people. You know, gain that confidence to go do other things. It's not about being the next famous comic. You know,
Mhm.
did that make any sense? Or are you
Yeah,
guys? why the fuck did that guy just read that quote from that random ass book?
Yeah, what makes a good comics is be able to relate to the room and like unload some human emotion. And this is why people like going to comedy shows, because they hear it's sort of like they sort of like untangle like the that's I'm trying to think of untangle like the wrappings of like daily human life. Like we go to work, we deal with family, and we all have sort of like that baggage. And a good comic and writer or artist will help us sort of like help us see like reality in like a more positive light.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like that's what art is about, is like the human condition. You know, like that's what I love about movies. Are you a big movie fan, Kelly?
Yes, I am. I've been watching. I've been watching like old movies on YouTube lately.
Oh, I am so glad you said that. Have you seen Bicycle Thieves?
No, I haven't. What's that one about?
Oh, dude, Bicycle Thieves is like the top tier hipster douchebag. Try to sound smart. No, it's regarded as like one of like the best films ever made. It's like an Italian movie that was made like right after World War II, and it's in this Italian. It takes place in this Italian village where everybody's like destitute, and this dad like finds a job, like riding around on a bike, like doing deliveries, and someone steals his bike, and the whole movie is like him and his son trying to find his bike. You know, um, uh, and but there's like the end of that movie where like, and I don't want to give it away, but it's just like very affirming of like be grateful for what you have, you know. And obviously, I'm not a guy in like the 1930s, after World War II. My life's been very different, but that just very much connected with me, you know, like, and that would be cool to do with comedy or anything that I create. I think that that's what I'm hoping for, is people from like much different backgrounds who like, even though we shouldn't be able to relate to each other on like a superficial level, they still connect with what I'm saying, and I still help them with something they're going through.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Kelly, I want to ask you before I forget two things. One, good self-help books about socializing, and two, your favorite movies.
All right, like the one really great book that I recommend to like to everyone, especially comics, is it's called improve your conversations, or improv improve.
Improve improv your conversations.
Yep, it's written by Patrick King. He's a conversational coach. It's this is like a great book. It will help you think on your feet and just have better interactions with people in general. And I'm glad you brought up like movies that I enjoyed watching, because I just watched an old movie on YouTube and I was like, oh, it's just so relatable right now. It was Cabin Boy with Chris Elliott.
So I know who Chris Elliott is, the guy from Scary Movie with the fucked up hand, right?
Yep.
And it's
I
an
watched
old movie.
Yep, it was from '94, and I was just like, wow, this is a great movie. It's about a fancy lad who gets stranded on a pirate ship. And it's basically, I'll just sum up what the movie is. Basically, what I interpreted it was like, oh wow, this is like when a school child or like a college guy goes into like the real working world and sort of like progresses into more of a man. That movie like had the full hero's journey in it.
Didn't it also have a cameo with David Letterman too?
Yes, and he had my
Oh,
favorite.
that's fun.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't
remember
even know
that?
he was in a movie.
Yeah,
Um,
David Letterman had a good camp. You can watch it on YouTube right now for free and with ads.
Cabin Boy. And I have YouTube Premium. I don't even have to watch ads, bitch. Boom.
Nice.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yep, and
Also,
I think I'll end it with David Letterman's famous phrase from that movie, which also could be used as Rick Santorum's presidential campaign.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was just called "Man, oh man, do I hate them fancy lads."
that's not as hardcore as I thought you were going to go with that joke. I'm not going to lie. I was expecting something really bad, but and I really don't appreciate you bashing Senator Santorum. in my presence, you know. The greatest political mind of our time, I think. You know, it goes top three are uh, the guy in Toronto that got caught smoking crack. You know,
Mayor Ford.
you
Is he
know,
still alive?
No.
no, he died.
Well, no wonder.
Yeah, he's a martyr for the cause of you know, functional crack smokers because I'm tired of us being judged by society, you know. And that's number three. Number two is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Just because I think she's fucking hot, dude. Like I just want to like gag her mouth and then, you know, I'm not gonna get specific, but you know, invade the southern border.
Yeah.
Oh,
You seem like a good judge of character.
yeah, I'm great. Not as good, not as good as judges Rick Santorum is, or Clarence Thomas, but or Brett Kavanaugh. God damn it, dude! Why do we have so many fucking idiots in our goddamn government?
Well, it's
God, a bunch of fucking retards, man.
well,
Like,
look at the people who vote, and you'll see who we get.
yeah, like, but like, it's so weird that like the past two elections, three elections, okay, it's been like totally shitty candidates that everybody thinks are totally shitty, right? Like, and it's the same people, you know. And honestly, like how hard is it to vote in a primary, right? Like, or probably not that fucking hard, but I guess nobody really cares that much, you know. But yeah, man, shit's fucked. Uh, yeah, well, yeah,
Yep.
no, shit's kind of fucked, man. Can
Okay,
I?
thank you, John. I think we'll leave on that optimistic note. Thank you so
Oh,
much. It's been a great
I'm sorry.
conversation. A lot of
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, it's been an hour and a half. Fuck. Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you for having me on. And by the way, as I was pessimistic, I'm actually fundamentally an optimist. I think that we can learn through hardships. And that's maybe I think a good takeaway from the conversation because that's something you and me have in common. Is in a sense we sort of struggle in that same way of being special ed kids, and I think we're turning it into something positive. And that's what I want to say to all your listeners, Kelly. Take the negative and turn it into positive. Take the
All right.
lemons and turn it into lemonade.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we
All right.
will take our goodbye.
Later,
Thank you
Kelly.
very
And
much,
Darren,
Jack.
is that your brother's name, Darren?